All right, folks. The American Jewish Leadership Conference, or the Jewish Leadership Conference, is still going on. Going on. It's crazy. It was supposed to last a few hours, but it's going on for 8 days and 8 nights.
This conference is the worst thing to happen to Jews since Zyklon B.
Yeah, exactly. It's lasting a lot longer. It's from a few hours, and I think it's going 8 days, 8 days and 8 nights, longer than expected. It's another miracle. But hey, here come the heavy hitters, the panel from hell: Bari Weiss, Ben Shapiro, and Dan Senor. I don't know if that's his name. That's probably, I know that's his name. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, but I think it's a funny pronunciation of a Jewish name is Dan Senor. So I'm going to keep calling him that. But we'll hear from him on the patron side. Right now, here is Bari Weiss. Says she wants to use her new perch at CBS News to redraw the lines of what falls in the 40-yard lines of acceptable debate in American political and cultural life. She says her aim is to sideline voices like Hassan Piker, Tucker Carlson, and Nick Fuentes and elevate charismatic figures such as who? Let's take a look.
All of us see the moment that we're in. And all of us see that the choices that it feels like we have sometimes, which is Hassan Piker and Tucker Carlson or Nick Fuentes and, Andrew Tate, the kind of people that are rising in the podcast charts, those don't actually represent our values. And I don't think that they represent the values and the worldview of the vast majority of Americans.
So then why are they at the top of the podcast charts then? You see, this is the kind of pseudo-intellectualism that I talked about last week when we did the Dave Portnoy segment. Like she goes on to talk about how she doesn't want to gatekeep, but then she goes on to describe how she is in fact planning to gatekeep.
And so this is an opportunity to speak for the 75%, for the people that are on the center left and the center right that still believe in equality of opportunity, that still believe passionately in the American project, that still believe in all of the things that everyone in this room believes in, which is liberty and freedom and individual responsibility and in the most basic level, the right to know what is actually going on in the world. Not the world as propagandists and ideologues imagine it to be, but what's actually going on in the world and in your community, so you can make decisions about where to send your kids to school, about where to live, and about how to vote. That used to just be normal. And the goal of what we're trying to do at CBS is to get back to that normalcy. And I feel incredibly energized and enthusiastic because I think that is where the vast majority of Americans actually are.
How many starvation denial pieces did the Free Press print about Gaza with the excuse that, well, these kids had pre-existing health conditions anyway, so I guess they're not actually starving to death because they were sick in the first place? Yeah, that's the kind of down-the-middle coverage we can expect now at CBS. A restoration of the Walter Cronkite era, for sure.
Well,
wow, look at that panel.
So that articulation of that set of goals to speak into the lives of the 75%. How are you going to do that?
First of all, what's 75%? What are you basing it on? 75%. So 75% of who? Who? You just said these voices that you consider too marginal for your space are, dominating the podcast charts, the independent media charts. Cable news ratings are not high. So, what are you talking about? But on what basis do you say you represent this silent majority of 75% of the people?
Well, the problem is just that people have not heard the centrist argument.
Right.
They just haven't heard from these people. Yeah. I can't remember who did the profile. Somebody did a very good profile recently about Bari Weiss and the takeover of CBS, saying, her niche is to be the anti-woke person that gives liberal wine moms permission to bitch about gender. Right?
Yeah,
because she's acceptable. She has that pseudo intellectual veneer. But if you listen to what she's describing, okay, so you're really describing MSNBC unwoked, really.
Right.
You're describing a kind of like center-right MSNBC, where those liberal wine moms who don't like tampons in the boys' bathroom, that's where they can go. Right. You really think that's 75% of the American public wants to watch that?
Yeah, that's the silent majority.
What's your strategy for success?
So I think one of the problems is a lot of people have tried to do centrist.
Our strategy for success is that the richest man in the world is paying us. So success really doesn't matter. We don't really have
I think he dropped back to second now.
Oh, he's back to second now. Okay, I don't follow the trends that closely. Okay, yeah. So the second richest man in the world is bankrolling us. So success is whatever he likes.
What's your strategy for success?
So I think one of the problems is a lot of people have tried to do centrist news. I know this because I am like the target audience for those things. And the reason that they have all failed is it's like trying to force feed spinach down someone's throat, right? It's felt very like tofu, oatmeal. It's like centrist news is choosing the midpoint between every single topic. It's felt like an absence of charisma and identity. And I, as nostalgic as people might be.
I have a different theory. The way that centrism is defined by wealthy elites is not actually centrist according to the vast majority of the population. I think that's actually the problem. You people define coincidentally the views of wealthy people who are deeply invested in the conventional wisdom as centrist when it's only centrist on the Upper East Side. That's what you're defining as centrism, what the center of opinion is on East 79th Street.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And what she's talking about here is like stylistically it's boring, it's bland. So
right.
So here's her plan to spice it up.
Which is brilliant.
Brilliant. Yeah.
For an era in which 30 million Americans every night watched Walter Cronkite and saw him as the voice of truth. And I understand why they're nostalgic for that. We're not going back to that. So how do you build trust in a moment of unbelievably low trust in all of our public institutions, especially the mainstream press? I don't think it's by pretending like we can go back to having a view from nowhere. I think it's about who's in the room, right? I think it's about redrawing the lines of what falls in the 40-yard lines of acceptable debate and acceptable American politics and culture. And I don't mean that in like a censorious gatekeeping way. I mean having people.
What other way could
That's
you
exactly
mean
what
that?
you mean.
Well, what other way is there to mean that? That's exactly what that means. We're going to redraw. We're going to determine who gets in between the 40-yard lines, which are fairly close together on a football field. You couldn't even go 30-yard lines. No, 40-yard lines.
Yeah.
That is the definition of gatekeeping, is determining who gets to speak inside this Overton window. Like that's literally what gatekeeping is. Right. This is what I mean. How this is the pseudo-intellectualism of Bari Weiss. This was what you saw in the Portnoy interview. Well, now, on the other hand, you've said the things that a lot of people are offended by in the past, haven't you? Right? We're not going to make a big thing out of that, but we're going to mention that because we're going to be very on the one hand and
not
on the
show
other.
it.
Right, and not show it. So this is what I mean. This is what she does. This is her whole grift.
That are clearly identifiably on the center left and on the center right in conversation with each other. And we've been doing so much of this at the Free Press. I was in, where was I? Chicago. Last week, I think I've lost all track of time, where Dana Lash, former spokeswoman from the NRA, was debating Alan Dershowitz on guns. Now, these are people that have wildly different opinions on the Second Amendment, and yet showing that they can have good faith, very passionate, very charismatic disagreement and still like each other at the end of the day.
Charismatic. Dana Loesch versus Alan Dershowitz. Alan Dershowitz is the dictionary definition of anti-charisma. And Dana Loesch is a woman I think 99 out of every 100 people forgot even exists. I don't think anybody's heard that name in like 15 years. Like no one's heard from Dana Loesch since like the Obama era, when the Tea Party days. Like that's the charismatic presence that you're looking for. Dana Loesch versus Alan Dershowitz. Bottomy Adeoys is the kids demand Alan Dershowitz. Yeah, that's the ticket. Charismatic figures such as Alan Dershowitz, who reflect where the vast majority of Americans actually are. Statutory grape is an outdated concept. Famous op-ed by Alan Dershowitz. And Glenn Greenwald coming in for the win. The example Bari Weiss gave of the charismatic mainstream debates she believes will revitalize CBS namely the gun control debate she arranged between Alan Dershowitz and Dana Loesch. Well, I'm telling you, nobody remembers Dana Loesch. I was like, where the fuck you pull that name from? Has so far been watched by a grand total of 860 people in the 5 hours since posting. That's right, 860 views. Now, the way YouTube works, a lot of times the actual view count is higher than the public. It takes a while for the public views to catch up with the total views. My guess is if it's at 860 after 5 hours, it's probably in the 1,100 to 1,200 range. Just to give you some context, if one of our videos it gets fewer than 1,200 views in 1 hour, it's considered a total flop.
Bomb.
It's a bomb. It's a total disaster.
That'll usually be ranked number 10. They give you
10 out of the previous 10. Like, I guess nobody cared about that one. It only got 1,000 views in 1 hour.
Like basically when we do Sudan or unions, we get that.
Yeah, right. Anything important gets those kinds of numbers, right?
Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
And so, that's why we do RFK Love Poetry, folks. Got to pay the bills. Christmas is coming up, right?
Got to keep the lights on.
Got to keep the lights on, as they say. But for 860 views, so that's 1,200 views in 5 hours. It's unheard of that any of our videos do that poorly, much less the $200 million woman here who now runs CBS News. That's what the kids really want. But you know who loves what she's saying? Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro tells Jewish Leadership Conference his company targets kids with entertainment content that embodies Judeo-Christian values, so they don't have to see Miss Rachel lecturing them about Palestine. He then praises Larry Ellison and Bari Weiss's capture of CBS.
Do not become political in a particular way because they watch the news. They watch the news in large part after they've become a little bit political. And the way that people mostly become political is through culture. It is through kind of the normal water cooler conversations they have day to day. And so one of our goals was, once we had built up a big enough audience, could we start to broaden our mission to include things like entertainment content that was going to shape people's values from the time that they were young? So, for example, we have a children's programming unit called Bentkey that has several 100,000 subscribers, and it embodies
all of whom are the parents of children who like you and what you're about, and so they subscribe. I guarantee you your programming is not watched by hundreds of thousands of children. When those parents put on your children's programming, I guarantee what happens in 9 out of 10 cases is the kids start crying and say, I want Miss Rachel. Where's Miss Rachel? Put on Miss Rachel. This is boring. That's what happens when they watch your children's content.
Scary man with eyebrows.
Scary man with funny hat. Sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't. Why doesn't he wear a red hat or a pink hat?
These sort of classical Judeo-Christian values for kids, where you're not worried that you're going to leave your 5-year-old in front of a TV and suddenly Miss Rachel's going to be lecturing them about Palestine. That's not going to be a concern if you watch our sort of content. So,
it's not a concern for anyone. It's not a concern for anyone. This is a total lie that gets repeated about Miss Rachel so often. Because I have kids who watch Miss Rachel. Her children's content is totally apolitical. She does not lecture children about Palestine. She uses her platform as a popular creator to promote Gaza on social media, which is a great thing. But she has a children's YouTube channel. YouTube governs children's content very strictly. You can't sneak pro-Palestine messaging into those videos.
No.
We decided to expand in that way. Hopefully that'll be justified by the audience, and the audience will love what we're doing. If not, then we'll have to stick and move in other ways too. That's, as Bari says, one of the nice things about independent media is that you can really move quickly. You can adjust on the fly. And I just want to take a second and say how courageous it is for Bari to move back into a legacy media space, which does have disproportionate power and weight in the conversation, disproportionate resources in being able to actually ferret out the news. The dirty sort of unspoken secret about independent media and legacy media is that independent media has always been at least a little bit parasitic on legacy media. They have to rely on the reporting of legacy media because they have so many resources. So for Bari to go back into legacy media and give up the freedom and fun that independent media represent in order to actually go and capture an institution and take it back for something like Sanity is an amazing thing.
Thank you.
Take it back for something like Sanity, she says. That's what she's capturing it for Sanity. For sanity, not for Zionism, for sanity. It's good that people named Weiss and Shapiro are welcome in the halls of mainstream media again. Finally,
finally they broke that Kugel ceiling.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I keep saying I don't understand. It's like he had a lobotomy with Matt Taibbi. Now I do. Ben Shapiro's writing his articles.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I think Ben
Yeah.
Shapiro is writing for Racket
Ghostwriting.
under Taibbi's
It's a
byline.
ghostwriter situation. Yeah.
It's almost like the idea of covering Bari Weiss's takeover of CBS as a story about the plucky independent media merit conquering the clueless corporate media that needs them to revitalize their viewing numbers is just completely batshit insane. That's a completely insane take. Like, you could not misinform people more than you could by writing an article like that. As Glenn pointed out, nobody watches their shit.
Right.
They were bought to be propagandists at CBS. They're not. Bari Weiss is going to bring in tons of viewers. She couldn't bring in tons of viewers for the Free Press. Free Press was backed by Mark Andreessen and other propagandists who have a vested interest in having somebody like that who can plausibly sell their agenda under a veneer of upper class, educated, quirky, kind of urban white woman veneer. It's a way of selling those politics to wine moms, to libs. That's what Bari Weiss is for. That's what she's being paid for. Does anyone believe that CBS is going to have some kind of revitalization in its viewership under the free press model? Free press didn't have that.
Right. Exactly. Just absolutely bonkers.
I mean, if anything, I would imagine it's going to make it worse. Because if you go full right-wing grifter, there are a lot of places to go for that.
Exactly.
That are not corporate media, which is so tarnished among the people who might like that kind of a very right-wing version of CBS. Why would they go to CBS for that?
Well, this is what I mean.
The people who go to CBS as a trusted news outlet, I'm sure a lot of those have already dropped off.
Right. Like, most people with Bari Weiss's politics are, pretty thick-headed, shameless ideologues. They don't really value the pretense of being above the fray, the way she does.
Yes.
It's a very niche market that you are cornering there. Certainly far less than the 75% of your claims.
Please clap.